Welcome to Stranger Connections, where I celebrate wonderfully weird people and quirky stories. I'm your curious beast and host, Lisa David Olson, the practically world-famous business humorist, interactive speaker, and speaker trainer. Reach out if you want me to help reignite your team or event, or if you want to start your journey to the TEDx stage. Today, I am thrilled to meet somebody that I feel like I already know, but we're just meeting. She's a skilled wordsmith with the soul of a journalist, the mind of a marketer, and the heart of a storyteller. I am so thrilled to meet you. Welcome, Robyn Greenspan. Hey, Robyn.
Hey, Lisa. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I
I'm
am
really looking forward
thrilled.
to our conversation.
Oh, girl, you had me at dopamine. Dopamine. How do you say it?
Exactly. Dopamine. Yeah.
Dopamine. I
Yep.
knew it until I said it out loud. So is Dopamine Hacks is your new, is it a book? Is it a workbook? I know we can get it on Amazon.
Yeah. So it's a workbook. I like to say, if you think it's a book, you can read it in 5 minutes because there's very few words on a page, but it's an experiential workbook. And yeah, so it's not something that you need to read. It's really something that you immerse yourself in. It's a practice and it's really something to be thoughtful about. So it's not just a quick
Mm.
read. Yeah, it's an activity.
Yeah, the byline says how to mind shift and mood lift your way to motivation. And there's personal activities and ways to stimulate imagination and foster positive self-reflection, boosting confidence and rekindle pleasant memories. And to me, this sounds like something that we could use instead of a grateful journal. This is going to not just be pulling in grateful things, but also now what? Instead of just going, oh, I'm grateful for that. I've got shoes. Yay. Okay, I'm grateful. But now what?
Yeah, so this is a really interesting combination. So dopamine is also known as the happiness hormone. It is a brain chemical, it's a neurotransmitter, and it is something that gets activated when you engage in pleasurable things, and it provides motivation and reward. And typically when we find that, or at least in my case, procrastination is typically disguised as other things. So it could be I maybe don't have the confidence to take this on, so I'm delaying it. I don't feel competent in it, so I'm delaying it. I'm overwhelmed by it, so
Mm.
I'm delaying it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so procrastination shows up in a lot of different reasons, but it all results in the same thing. Someone not feeling that they're able to progress in some way. They're lacking motivation.
Yes.
So
We get overwhelmed. We're like, I can't possibly clean out that closet, which is something that happened to me a couple of years ago. I just can't even, you know what? I'm doing it. I'm not going to do the thing I want to do until I clean out that closet. And in the very bottom of the closet was a brand new book I had never even read. And it was Procrastination for Losers. And it was dated. So it was like a journal. It was a humorous journal. And I laughed my head off because I missed the opportunity to use it because it was dated like the calendar. Like, okay, that says a lot about me.
it's a perfect case study about the book and about the symptom of procrastination. But sometimes, procrastination, and this is what I noticed when I was reflecting on how this showed up for me in my life. So I'm someone who has doodled on everything that I have ever owned from the time I could hold a pen up until, today. So what I realized now, what I had been doing at the time was finding ways to keep myself engaged, whether it was in school or in work or a meeting, and also activating dopamine because the practice of just making shapes and using different colors and thinking about, am I going to do a line here or a drawing or make a face, like that's an activation of your dopamine. And there's a lot of natural ways to activate it, like hobbies and standing in the sunshine and exercise and being with people who uplift you and enjoying activities with them. And, you may think vacation is a great place to get dopamine, but research has shown that just planning a vacation activates your dopamine because it's the anticipation of the reward to get there. So dopamine plays a great role in our lives. But sometimes when we're procrastinating or, dragging our feet on something, we need a little extra boost. So the activities in this book do two things. They activate your dopamine, so they give you that little bit of motivation that you need, that little surge. But it also, the activities in here, and I'll show you some in a second, really help to surface the things about you that are great. So maybe procrastinating, you're beating yourself up a little bit. That inner voice is, telling you're no good, or, you're lazy or something. So you pick up this book, you open it up, and you see something that says, if today was proclaimed a holiday in your honor, how would we celebrate you?
Ooh, I like
So
that. We
that,
would finger paint with our feet outside because I can't do the mess. And we would have salty snacks and talk about boys.
okay, excellent, excellent. Now it's your holiday. You can make it whatever you want.
Darn
But
right.
right. So while I'm thinking about I need to clean out the closet or do all these other things that I'm procrastinating over, I pick up the book. I just open to any page. I think about, wow, if today was proclaimed a holiday in my honor, how would I want to celebrate? So that gives me time to activate my imagination, think about the things that excite me and that I want to share with others, and and activate that dopamine. So it not only gives you that little dopamine surge, it's now giving you a catalog of things to feel good about yourself.
I
So
love it.
so it replaces that inner critic that's saying you're too lazy to clean a closet, to now saying you're so wonderful, you should have a holiday to celebrate you. And how great does that feel that, the queen of the day is now going to clean out the closet very regally. Maybe that's how you celebrate your
Yeah.
holiday. Everybody cleans out their closet.
Dressed, you said regally, so we wear crowns, not clowns. And you describe dopamine as the brain's happiness hormone. And so is that where the word dope comes from? Because dopamine gives us this rush and makes us feel good. Is that why dope is called dope? I'm wondering.
Well, I guess we'd have to go back to the scientist, who discovered the neurotransmitters and serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins, all those, and see where that naming convention came from. But you may be right. Um,
I like what you're saying about how you were leading us to happier thoughts and more productive thoughts. And it's like giving ourselves permission to just explore and play and feel. And also, I've said this before, that negative voice, the one that told me when I was trying to write my first book that why would I write a book? There's no letters after my name. And
mm,
finally, as I thought I had to fight that voice. And what it is that voice tells you you're really onto something right. And you should argue with the voice and go, watch this. I'm going in. I'm doing it.
exactly, exactly. But sometimes, you're in a place where you just don't have that self-trust to be able to debate against that bully. And, so one of the things that I realized, and what kind of circuitously and serendipitously led me to creating this book, was I was in a corporate role since I was 17 years old, not the same one, but working for corporations, basically grew up in corporations. Um, and got to, at the end of 2022, what I'd call my corporate expiration date. So it somehow, through a perfect storm and roller coaster ride that we were on for 2, 3 years during the pandemic, I survived that, rewatching all the Sopranos and the podcasts and getting magic markers and coloring books and doing all the things that we all did during lockdown to entertain ourselves. And I really thought that I came through the pandemic, okay, with my sanity intact. But by the end of 2022, well, actually in 2022, I started feeling like a cascade of this compounded stress just building up. And, I was in a new role that didn't fit quite right. And, there was a lot of cultural and social chaos that we were all dealing with. And simple things like going to the grocery store and getting your kids off to school became like insurmountable challenges. My dog died, we
Mm.
had aging family, all that stuff. Just all of a sudden, we came out of the pandemic and I just lost my everything. I burned out.
Mm-hmm.
I burned the chronic stress, not asking for help, thinking that I can fix it myself or that it would go away or that it was temporary, burned me out. And what I learned subsequently after that is that burnout is a depletion of dopamine. When you're burned out, you get no joy, no pleasure from anything in your life. You are dopamine deficient. So when I left that role and went into what I called my own corporate recovery program, what I realized I was doing was rebuilding my dopamine activation, finding the things that were going to bring me motivation, joy, pleasure, and make me happy again. And that's really kind of what led to the book.
It's such a great workbook. And in part of it, it says that you can deepen your connection to others. How would that work in the workbook?
So initially, I thought of the workbook as an individual practice. So, a person would get it and, open up the book and get a prompt like, draw a billboard with your name on it. And, that would just make them feel good. But then what I realized is there was applications for so many different audiences. And I put that at the beginning of the book as well. So it's not just good for your own personal growth and, kind of goal achievement, but it's great for teams. So imagine like harnessing the collective genius of your team.
Mm-hmm.
Or Lisa, you probably know like once a year you get told, let's think out of the box, and you don't even know what that means at that point. So, let's make that a habit of thinking outside the box. So that's how it works with teams, with classrooms, but how it deepens connection with others. And I don't know about you, but I'm married almost 28 years, and you would think that you have maybe exhausted things to talk about, but but then you open up a book like this and you ask your partner, um, what makes you shine? Describe it to a kindergarten class.
Oh, neat. Especially the way you're stating your audience. Because I would answer that differently if I was with my
Right,
girlfriends or with my hubby. But you're
right.
saying kindergarten class. I like that.
Right. So, or like, you go out for ice cream with your partner, and there's a question in here, dream up a new ice cream flavor. You
Yeah.
know, so it could be superficial like that, dream up a new ice cream flavor, but it's a question and a discussion you and your partner or your companion probably haven't had before.
Yes.
And, but then there's ones that are more depth, when do you feel most alive?
Mm.
That's a deep question. So, ask your partner of 20, 25 years a question like that, and it opens up all new opportunities to get to know each other in different ways. So, these questions, these prompts, these activities are great for all ages. And, like I said, it could be a good for in a classroom, it could be great with
Hmm.
your spouse or a friend.
I think one of the things I think of right away, I created a card deck and I could see this becoming a card deck. And my
Yep.
card deck is all prompts to be more like charades and acting things out or calling in sick to a place you don't work. So it's storytelling prompts and silly prompts.
Yep.
And yours would make a great card deck as well. And one of the things that works with my card deck and your book would work is how to liven up a Zoom meeting. Because you could either flip the pages and somebody says stop and you tell them what it is,
Mhm.
or they all buy the book, of course, and then take turns sharing one of these prompts and everybody can answer it in the chat. I mean,
Yeah.
keeping
Yeah.
people interactive during a Zoom, we all get,
Mhm.
zombie screen face. So it's a great way
Yeah.
to keep people engaged. So
Yeah.
I
And there's
want people to think that way too.
that really is a great thing. That I know that we talk about like icebreakers helps you to get to
Hmm.
know other people better, but these help you to get to know yourself better and get to know people better in different ways. So there's also someone brought this up to me that thought that there were great DEI applications for teams for the book as well. Like if you're on a global team and you have a question like let's see, You just achieved something great. What song is playing, in the background. So imagine if you're on a global team, the diversity of responses you get. Maybe someone from India plays a song, from their culture. Someone from China says, this is a song from my childhood, so it's a way. And it's interesting because I hear you say this on your podcast now that I've been listening to it, to, see how we're the same and to celebrate the beauty of our differences.
Yes.
So that's what I say, the book lets us do. So when I heard you say that, with the
Oh,
podcast, I was like, oh, this is a conversation that's really meant to be.
oh, that's so fantastic. Yeah, we do align with a lot, and you're doing a lot of improv, whether you know it or not. So your creative mind is just something that I really align with, and I love it because you're never bored. I told my son what I was doing when I was home alone yesterday, and because my hubby was traveling, and I told him I was doing some goofy stuff because I always am, and he goes, "Wow, mom, are you sure you should be doing that?" And I was like, "Well, I'm never bored." And he goes, "You might want to try being bored because I worry about you when you're alone."
I know. I call our house a playground.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Permanent recess is not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
well, I think getting to know yourself better is something that really sounds cool. And it's also a way that if your friend moved away or you have a pen pal or whatever, how fun it could be to send the book back and forth. And
Oh,
then
right.
I'll answer a question and then I choose one for you and then back and forth. And because your answers are going to change depending on the day, the weather. Right now, it's like 6 below here in Minnesota. And
My
so my
goodness.
answers are going to be different depending on the day and how much I've been outside. So that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. And the you brought up your card deck and journals and prompts and decks that do things like that. I mean, they're great conversation starters, great ways to go deep and explore, yourself and get to know others in different ways. And what's a bit more targeted, I think, about the Dopamine Hacks book is that every question, every activity was very intentionally designed. It was intentionally designed to elicit, a positive feeling,
Mm.
and make you feel good about yourself, some positive introspection, reflect on memories. I actually worked with a therapist and a psychologist to validate and review, the neuroscience. Because I mean, I have a master's in counseling, but I'm not a doctor. So, I wanted to make sure that what I knew from school, from grad school, and my own research was credible. So definitely had mental health care professionals validate the science. But yeah, they're all very intentional to not really take the edges of your brain to a dark direction. I mean, I realize if that's how we're currently wired or in the space that we're in, that's the lens that we use. But, it really is very careful to stay away from those dark edges of memories and feelings.
What a great point. And what a way to just remind yourself that you're not alone because you're with you. So you got to pick yourself up sometimes and it's not always easy, but a shift of thought can be all you need. Sometimes just moving from the couch to somewhere else, grab this book, open it up and challenge yourself to something or doodle on the page if you don't want to answer it cuz that's a good thing too.
Yeah, exactly. And what's really interesting, so one of the questions is, let's see, and it's funny because I got a similar result on the same question. So there's a question, what's your best advice? So a couple of people have sent me how they use that page. And they drew like, big letters and, signs and notes to themselves. So it didn't come across as like a narrative, or they wrote a story, or thought about a thesis statement and had a plot and a character narrative. I mean, they just kind of you freehand just drew words, pictures, ideas. One thing. There was one thing someone said, be good to yourself, and then they had like red arrows around and said, pay attention to this one. So,
Oh,
so it's just
neat.
been great to see how people are starting to use it in their own special way.
Yes, and it's how many times you get a book. I don't know if you're this way. I will get a book and I won't write in it or mark in it because I always think about the value of giving it away to share it with someone else. and another son gave me a book and said, "Write in it right now in front of me," because he knows that I won't. And so that kind of broke me of that weird thinking. I don't know
Yeah.
where that ever came from, that everything I have has to be of value down the line to give to someone else. And no, sometimes you get something for yourself. You deserve this.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And that's why I made it this size. It's very portable. It's like the size of a playbill. I think it's, 5 by 7, 6 by 8, something like that.
Yeah.
But it's meant to be portable. So you could throw it in your bag, in your messenger bag, your laptop bag, book bag, and just anytime you need like that little reset or charge or reminder of what makes you special, you just pick it up and, you know, write the first 3 sentences in a letter to someone you love and then
Mm.
draw a picture to go with it. How does that not make you feel good?
Yes, just the same as I prompt people to text someone when you think about them and
Mm,
just text, "Just thought
absolutely.
about you," and I'm smiling right now. What a great thing because usually we hear our phones alert and it's almost like, "Now what? Oh,
Mm.
what?" I don't know if you're like that, but a lot of times for me, it's, "Now what?" So, it's nice to like, "Oh, you're thinking of me. Oh, now I feel good," and I'm sure that's a dopamine release.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. So understanding what triggers dopamine for you, well, at least for me, has really helped me to help guide how I navigate entrepreneurship. This is the first time in my life that my time is my own. I'm unhurried and unworried, as I like to say. I called the first 6 months fun employment.
Mm,
And then started getting down to business, figuring out what was next. But, it's just been a great journey to have this white space to design my life the way that I want. So there are days that I don't feel like sitting in front of my laptop or a screen all day. Now, I didn't have that choice when I worked for a corporation. But
right.
now, as an entrepreneur, I know, okay, that's when your roots need to get some nourishment underground.
Yeah,
Just because I'm laying on the couch and watching Netflix doesn't mean that I'm lazy or not being productive. That is time where, my internal mechanisms need some self-care,
mm,
need I think about like I said, the roots of a tree. Like when we look outside and see a bare tree, we don't think nothing's happening. Things are happening under the surface. So, that's how I reconcile my binge watching. There's things happening under the surface, but they're just not ready. Um, they're just not ready to bloom yet
right,
you know
right.
and I know when it's ready, then I'll be here and exhaustively working, because that's full dopamine flow I'm getting at that point.
Sure. Yeah, we have to reset. We have to recharge our phones, but we're not as good to ourselves. We have to reset our computers. We have to restart, and we do it, but we don't do it to ourselves. So
Exactly.
I think that's good to listen to those cues and go with it. And then if you're stuck on the couch too long, then certainly you need to reach out. Are
Yeah.
you doing coaching then with people? I know you have Storycraft.coach.
Mhm. Yeah, so when I left corporate, Storycraft.coach was my primary business, communication, storytelling, presentation, content marketing, coaching. My career can be boiled down into stories for brands, stories for thought leaders, and now stories for our inner voices. So stories has been that resonant theme, that red thread throughout my career. So I really thought the storytelling coaching was going to be, the next thing that I did, the presentation coaching. And then, great story segue. Um, and then 6 months into my corporate recovery in 2023, I'm getting a facial as part of my self-care. Self-care doesn't have to be a trip to the spa. Self-care is anything that gives us time for ourselves. So I was sitting in that chair, and getting a facial, and I don't know if you've ever had one, but it's a whole experience, sights and smells, and you're just breathing in these essential oils, and you feel like warm steam on your face, and just in that kind of pampered space, Lisa. I was just in the very, I think I just had what I call endless white space.
Nice.
And that was the moment that I started to think about, how do I come back from this burnout? I had
Mm.
depleted this dopamine. I had left a long career. I'd walked away from a 9-year a job I was at for 9 years, reputation, stability, a six-figure paycheck. It was a hard thing to walk away from. And I felt really beat up. I felt really traumatized by that burnout. I didn't know how to recover from it. So self-care was part of it. I'm in the spa, and I started to think about, okay, I'm a coach. I have clients. I understand coaching, and I understand a bit about neuroscience. And somehow, serendipitously, this neuroscience and coaching came together, in where I started to ask myself things to remind me of what I knew I could do again. So, what was I proud of? Um, how does a compliment make me feel? What's been a skill I've always been able to count on? What were 3 things in this last role that I really, feel like I accomplished? What was something when I was a child I always wanted to do that I actually did? So just in that space, and I can't even, it sounds crazy, but when I've spent my whole life in my head thinking, analyzing, strategizing, and now all of a sudden relying on some instinct or intuition or something else driving me. I mean, I left the spa with this idea, and just over the course of probably 2, 3 months, I wound up working on it, developing it, and publishing it in October. So
I love it. You
it
can't
just,
fight that idea, but the main part is you allowed yourself to hear the ideas coming in, and this is why we get a lot of ideas in the shower, because you generally don't have your phone in the shower, you generally don't have someone asking you for something, and there's no television generally. Again, I'm sure somebody has a fancy bathroom like that, but Uh, that is where, or if you're driving and keep your music off and keep things off, it's you allowed yourself that space to do what I call the floaty. You were probably right before you might drift off because it was so relaxing. And that's why I keep paper by my bed. Some of those ideas pop in and I'm like, I think I'm going to remember it, but that's never true. Got to
yeah,
write that stuff down. And I love that description of you allowed the new thoughts in and that you said you had this talent and this idea and you put them together.
yeah,
That is how someone becomes unique, whether you're a speaker or you're creating a workbook or you're starting a brand new business or you want to bring a different version of yourself to your day job and use
exactly.
your talents and put it with what you've been, you know, having to do during the work. It's not always what we choose.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, add your other talents to something and then what do you make of it?
Right, right. And now I see, like, there's great applications in how I'm using the book. So with my coaching clients, I use it. With organizations, there's opportunity for me to use it. I'm speaking February 21st, the Connecticut Business Women's Forum. It's the 41st year of this women's personal development day that's put on here. Joan London is the keynote speaker this year.
Wow,
And
cool.
and Lisa, I was asked to be one of the 2 other people joining her on stage. Not at the same time, but you know,
Still,
on
yeah,
the roster with her. So I'm going to take that audience of several hundred, career women
yeah.
through a couple of the experiences here, so they can understand, if they start to see those symptoms that I was feeling, like, just no joy about things. I said, my work world was getting bigger and my outside world was getting smaller. That's
Mhm.
that's how I was feeling. Like, if it was an aperture, like, it would just be getting darker and darker until I almost disappeared. That's how I was feeling. I had, like, I was moody, and couldn't think straight, and I mean, just checking email would send me into a panic attack. How did that
Yes.
happen? I've gone to school while going to work almost my entire life. How did I all of a sudden get panic attacks over checking email? I had to remember that that present current situation was not permanent for me.
Right.
The questions I asked myself, the space I gave myself to allow myself the freedom to remind myself and remember, hey, you got an associate's degree at 30 years old and you kept going and got a master's and beyond. Like, that's not someone who's lazy or a slacker or someone who can't perform.
No.
Like, so it allowed me to forgive myself, I think, for, how I felt when I had to leave, my corporate career.
Yeah, you were going ahead full steam and doing it for so long, that's all of a sudden you said, "You know what? I bet there's something else."
Exactly.
Well, and people that want to know more can reach you, what's the best way?
So there's a couple of ways. So the book Dopamine Hacks is available on Amazon, but if you go to dopaminehacks.com, that really tells you a lot about it. My um, concern about being authentic is I don't want people to spend the money and say, this is a book and I'm going to be really studying it and, highlighting and learning. It's, as I said, it's not that kind of book. It's an experiential workbook. So if you go to dopaminehacks.com, it really explains the foundation and what you'll derive from it. My other website is Storycraft.coach. It's a bit work in progress right now because it had to shift from being communications and storytelling coaching to now kind of bring this in. And I've been using this with storytelling clients also because, sometimes you're so stuck in that corporate mindset, you forget that you are a person outside of that, So when you ask a corporate executive who's trying to frame a presentation to think about, something that made them laugh the last
Yes.
time. It just kind of breaks that frame of mind, shifts the mindset into a different place. And then we have discussions that surface things that they may not have had access to before.
Sometimes that's what we need, just somebody else to say, "Hey, have you ever tried pineapple on your pizza?" You know? And that would open a whole conversation as well.
Exactly,
I'd
exactly. And
rather
I
talk about food than sports, so that's always my example.
Oh, 100%. Sports is lost on me, but yeah,
Yeah.
I can talk about food all day long.
This has been fantastic, but I can't let you go until I ask you if there is a dare or a prank that you've either done or had done to you or one of those family fables going on years and years. I would love to hear it.
Well, I had to really think about this because growing up in Brooklyn, pranks were not looked upon very favorably. Pranks could get you hurt. Maybe not everybody had the same sense of humor, but I was thinking back then around that time. So something that we would do is we had whoever had a car in high school, we would borrow their keys and say we want to just go sit in your car during gym. Um, and
Suckers.
Right. We just want to sit in the car. And then, we would take the car and go all over the place. And then, of course, the parking spot would not be there when we came back. So then we'd have to park somewhere else. And then our friends would think that the car got stolen and, you know, things like that. So it was, I would say that, pranks were probably more on the harmless side,
Yes. That's
less,
my favorite kind though, because it
yeah.
makes for a story and no one, press charges. That's always my best, you know?
Exactly, exactly, exactly. I like to tell people, I didn't grow up in like the avocado toast hipster Brooklyn. I grew up in Goodfellas, Brooklyn. Um, and now where I live in Connecticut with houses, horses and cows all around, I definitely feel like I'm in the witness protection program. So
That's
it's
great.
a real culture change for me here. But yeah, and then, other things like putting, my headshots and googly eyes on all my colleagues' family photos in the office. And yeah,
I might steal that one.
yeah. Yeah, there's nothing like, someone looking up at their clock and I'm on my face is on every single number.
Little tiny robin faces, I love it.
Right, or on their wedding picture, I replaced their husband's face with my own headshot, or stuck some googly eyes on there as well, so,
That's
yeah.
fantastic.
I call
Oh,
those,
I'm
like, kind of like long tail pranks.
yes, right,
Mm,
right. When you wait
yeah,
for it and you hear the burst of laughter or
right, you
you
have to have a
scream your
lot of
name.
patience. Patience and, probably some sociopathic tendencies.
Just a dab, just
Yeah,
a little Titch, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, this time together went so fast, but I am honored to have chatted with you, Robyn Greenspan. And remember that we can only be strangers once. And I
Yes.
invite you to stay weird.
Absolutely. And also look forward to staying connected with you and following more of what you're doing, Lisa, because it looks like you're having a blast.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it so much. Thank you,
All right.
Robyn.
All right. You take care, Lisa.
You too.
Bye-bye.